Welcome to the Businesstalk podcast. I am your host Deepak from India. Today we have the privilege of welcoming Professor Gemma Calvert as our distinguished guest on the podcast. Professor Gemma is a professor of practice at the College of Business, Nanyang Business School, and served as the Deputy Director of the Nanyang Centre for Marketing and Technology. Professor Calvert is globally recognized as pioneering force in the field of neuromarketing and one of the world's leading neuroscientists exploring the intersection of brain science and consumer insight. An accomplished academician, entrepreneur, and sought-after speaker, she has authored over 60 scientific papers on human brain function, with her research featured in internationally acclaimed journals such as The Science and Nature. Dr. Gemma holds a BSc in Social Psychology from the London School of Economics and a DPhil in Neuroscience from the University of Oxford. A respected thought leader beyond academia, she has served on the World Economic Forum's Global Agenda Council for Neuroscience and Behavior and was an inaugural board member of the Neuromarketing Science and Business Association. In recognition of her groundbreaking contributions to applied consumer neuroscience, she was elected a Fellow of the Royal College of Arts and Business in 2008. Her leadership roles have included R&D Director at the Institute on Asian Consumer Insights and co-founder of two neuromarketing ventures. Most recently, Split Second Research, an innovative startup advancing mobile implicit testing technology. Professor Calvert is pioneering work on the subconscious mind and consumer behavior has attracted widespread global attention, with features across time. Newsweek, The Economist, The Strain Times, Channel News Asia, CBS 60 Minutes, and multiple BBC productions, including Secrets of the Super Brands and World Service documentaries on the brain in business. In today's conversation, Professor Gemma Calvert shares key insights from her research, Multisensory Neuromarketing in the Age of AI. Let's not keep you waiting. Please join me in welcoming Professor Gemma Calvert to the conversation. Professor Gemma, we are deeply honored by your presence and grateful for your time with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Professor, how does multisensory integration in the brain influence what we notice, remember, or emotionally attach to in brand communications?
Well, we are a highly visual species. There's a large amount of the brain cortex, which is devoted to vision, but our senses are constantly interacting with what we see. So the brain doesn't just process sight, sound, smell, and touch in isolation. Actually, all of these senses combine and integrate to construct a single experience for us. And that integration will influence exactly what captures our attention, what gets encoded into our long-term memory, and also what we emotionally attach to. So let me give you some examples. You're walking in a mall and the aroma of coffee suddenly wafts into your attention. Now, that might draw us into the cafe because scent is directly linked to the brain areas which are involved in memory and emotions like the amygdala and the hippocampus. And that's why smells can trigger vivid childhood memories, sometimes instantly, even when we're unable to actually put a name to the fragrance. So if you think about this in retail context, there are some controlled scent experiments, including with some well-known footwear or sports footwear brands. They're showing that by introducing a congruent ambient smell into the retail environment can significantly increase purchase intention and also the amount of time that people spend actually evaluating products. And I think taste and smell, they work similarly, obviously, for the big food and beverage brands. When flavor experiences are fairly distinctive and consistent for us, they form really powerful memory cues and they become emotionally charged over time. So I think, in other words, multisensory signals, they don't just make brands noticeable, but they make them memorable and meaningful because they engage these systems that govern attention, govern emotion, and long-term memory at the same time.
Professor, in what specific ways is AI changing how we prototype and test multisensory brand experiences? For instance, experimenting with sound, color, or texture combinations?
Well, I think AI in every context is giving us an opportunity to evaluate the effectiveness of product prototypes and even multisensory brand experiences at scale, because they can gather behavioral responses from large numbers of consumers simultaneously, and then they can adapt designs in real time. And this allows for maximum effectiveness. And I think this is going across not just multi-sensory scenarios, but across, of course, the whole of digital marketing. So in many contexts, AI can basically generate and test, I don't know, hundreds of color or packaging variations through visual simulations. That's before anything is actually produced now. And I think you're seeing the same in sound design. AI systems have been trained on emotional response data sets that analyze things like tempo or pitch and harmony, and to estimate whether a sonic logo is going to be uniquely congruent with the brand that it represents, or whether it would evoke excitement or calmness. So I guess we can test lots of combinations of senses. So some of the research that I've been doing on sonic seasoning shows that if we change the music, we can change how sweet or bitter a food or a drink is perceived by consumers. So basically, brands can digitally simulate those sound taste pairings before actually running live trials. So I think that's the real place where AI is actually enhancing our ability to develop these multisensory combinations for brands today.
Gemma, marketers have long fixated on visuals. What evidence suggests that non-visual cues like sound or tactile design may play an even greater role in shaping consumer perception?
Well, there's actually quite a substantial body of research in consumer psychology and also in multisensory neuroscience that shows that these non-visual cues, such as sound and touch, they can play an equal and sometimes actually greater role in shaping perception rather than just visual alone. So if you take the automotive industry, for example, we know that engineers work quite hard to reduce unwanted cabin noise. But then you've got a whole bunch of sound designers and psychologists that deliberately reintroduce desirable soundscapes. I don't know what the engineers think of this, but when people buy a premium vehicle, I think they want to hear a certain depth or throatiness when they, put their foot on the accelerator, right? A very low, sort of powerful noise that signifies premium, even if it hasn't got anything to do necessarily with the performance itself. And I think, I mean, anybody who buys cars, the tactile cues, right? The leather interiors, the brushed metal finishes, all of those things influence how we perceive a brand as whether it's premium or not. And I mean, you see this again in luxury packaging, perfume brands spending a lot of time and effort on developing the tactile cues, like Marc Jacobs. The weight of the bottle, the color, the feel of it, and all of that is aimed to align with our experience of the aroma before we've even opened the bottle. So there are many examples of this across both commercial case studies and also in academic literature that is showing you how powerful combining these other sensory cues with vision can actually be for developing brand relationships.
Professor, research on sound symbolism shows that certain phonetic features evoke shared emotional responses. How can brands ethically leverage these in naming, packaging, and sonic branding?
Okay, so we've done a lot of work in this space. We show that certain speech sounds evoke, I guess, shared associations across different cultures because we're talking about the building blocks of human speech. So I guess brands now have an informal, what I call it, kind of playbook um, when it comes to naming and sonic branding. So we know sharper consonant sounds like k, k, and t are often associated with speed or precision, whereas softer or rounded vowels tend to feel warmer or can be even more luxurious. Even invented brand names, Haagen-Dazs, right? It's linguistically meaningless and it's a made-up name. But the unusualness of those consonants and long vowels helped it to sound premium, and this supported a higher price positioning. And one of the reasons being is that some of these speech sounds are uncommon in everyday speech. You don't see them in nicknames and so forth, particularly in Western cultures. So rarity signifies scarcity, signifies value. And it turns out that implicitly, these phonetic features can actually connote this to brands. I mean, I think you see it as well, in sonic branding. So you got Netflix's low frequency, ta-dum, these deeper tones signifying importance or weight, compared with McDonald's, I'm loving it, which is kind of like higher frequency. It's more fun, bright, happiness, emotionally upbeat. So these are not random sounds. They are literally designed to evoke certain types of emotional cues.
Professor Neuroscience suggests the brain is a prediction engine, constantly anticipating sensory input. How can brands design experiences that align with or pleasantly violate these cognitive predictions?
Well, you're quite right. The brain is constantly predicting what's going to happen next. And it does this based on past experience and past memories. So when sensory cues are coherent or congruent, for example, if you're looking at a premium product paired with a smooth texture or a warm soundscape, the experience feels sort of fluent and trustworthy because it's what we expect. So brands can create, I guess, memorability through what you've described as pleasant
Yes.
violations. So these are little surprises, I suppose, like an unexpected flavor twist, and maybe a playful sound in luxury packaging. Um, I think the principle is basically coherence first, what doesn't violate expectations, and then playing a little bit around with, some fun violations, which might introduce a bit of entertainment. So you can imagine that a car interior is visually calm and minimal, but maybe the startup sound or the lighting provides a subtle moment of surprise that actually makes that experience distinctive. And I was told recently of an example with Mercedes-Benz and the rapper will.i.am. So they were exploring this really funky scenario where, um, it's obviously a highly premium car, and when you put your pedal on the accelerator, on comes the subwoofer onto the music that you're listening to. And when you turn corners, the type, and the speed that you drive influence the tempo and the beat of the music. So those are kind of things which are a little bit unexpected. You might not want to, expect that in a Mercedes Benz. But those cars are extremely well crafted in a multisensory perspective.
Professor, with AI's capacity for large-scale data synthesis, how feasible is to create dynamically personalized multisensory experiences that adapt in real time to user preferences or mood?
Well, I think I've alluded to this in one of the previous questions, but it's increasingly feasible, obviously, particularly on the auditory and visual side, where I think digital systems can already adapt in near real time. So we're seeing early examples through technologies like Auracast, where location-based audio can be personalized to individuals through Bluetooth technology. Um, and you simply tune in to the to the broadcast of your choice. And so this can revolutionize gyms and other retail environments. For example, as you walk in, you can tune into a crafted playlist from a brand that is particularly congruent with their distinctiveness or their USPs. So AI's strength is all about synthesizing these large behavioral data sets and then adjusting sensory cues. In case of music, be tempo or pitch, can change lighting warmth, maybe visual content based on how people are engaging with those signals. So I think the limitation is maybe less technical and more about privacy and creative judgment. So the future is certainly adaptive and personalized, but I think there's obviously there's still a need for guidance by human design principles and particularly multisensory principles. Yeah.
Professor, when we tap into subconscious neural cues and implicit responses, where should brands draw the ethical line between persuasion and manipulation?
Yeah, it's a great point. And I don't think there's a universal answer to it either. Perhaps ethicists might agree it comes down to intent and alignment with consumer benefit. Persuasion seems to become manipulation when sensory or subconscious cues are used to imply qualities that simply aren't there or to override our informed choice rather than to enhance our experience. So, a classic point is that many of these technology brands keep you on the hedonic treadmill, right? Always seeking the next best thing. So, this is consistent with things like annual upgrades, the iPhone 6, the iPhone 7, the iPhone 8. So, any pleasure that you got in actually purchasing and enjoying that model goes out of the window as soon as a new model appears. So I think, it comes down to every brand's personal moral compass. And I think brands are being held accountable now by particularly younger consumers who are, aware of these kinds of manipulations. So I think, in developing and crafting products which give us superior sensory benefits, but don't manipulate us into purchasing things which are illusions and perhaps not as good products or hiding defects. I think that's where the line can be drawn.
Professor, traditional metrics don't easily capture subconscious sensory responses. What's new neuromeasures or data-driven tools hold the most promise for evaluating multiple sensory effectiveness?
You're right. So traditional metrics like surveys and click-throughs, they mainly capture our conscious opinion, but much of multisensory responses is actually happening below the level of our conscious awareness. So one of the most promising approaches, I believe, is in implicit reaction time testings, which we've been using with the flavor and fragrance industries as well as brands themselves for many years. It looks at how quickly people can associate a brand or a sensory cue with particular brand attributes. Now, because reaction speed is difficult to fake, we just simply don't have the cognitive power to conjure up responses at specific, very fast reaction times. So this means that we're actually being able to directly detect subconscious associations. If you combine it with these scalable AI analytic tools, we can compare hundreds of sensory combinations like sound, the color, texture, and identify which create the strongest emotional pull before we actually have to go into a launch with a campaign. And I think what's the most important thing is, whilst we use these things commercially, these implicit reaction test tests, have been very well validated in the academic literature. So they really bridge the scientific rigor with real-world speed.
Professor Gemma, I would like to conclude this episode with one last question. Looking ahead, do you envision a future where brand communication becomes a sensory ecosystem, designed, tested, and evolved through AI? Or will human intuition remain irreplaceable in this creative process?
Yeah. So I think we are absolutely moving towards brand communication, becoming more of a sensory ecosystem where AI can help us to design and test and refine experiences across the different sensory channels that we have and at a scale that we've never seen before. But I think AI is fundamentally pattern recognition, and it's an optimization tool. And it can tell us what's likely to work, but not what is necessarily meaningful or culturally resonant, or even consistent with constantly changing news and social environments. So in this respect, I think human intuition does remain absolutely essential because creativity, empathy, ethical judgments we've discussed, they don't just emerge from the data itself. So I think the future, it isn't AI or humans, it's AI accelerating experimentation. Human insight ensures that those experiences actually feel authentic and that they feel emotionally intelligent and resonant.
Listeners, thank you for joining this insightful exploration of how neuroscience and AI are reshaping the way brands connect with the human brain. As we have heard, the future of marketing isn't just about smarter algorithms. It's about richer, more sensory experiences that truly engage emotion and memory. I hope today's discussion sparks new ideas on designing brands the brain can't ignore. Thank you, Dr. Gemma, for sharing such a fascinating perspective on how neuroscience and AI are redefining the sensory dimensions of marketing. Your insights have given us a deeper understanding of how brands can move beyond data and reach the human mind through emotion and experience. It's been a true privilege to having you here today, and I am sure listeners will carry forward many valuable ideas from this conversation. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir.